Boys, today we're going to be looking at the types of business. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to examine there are three types of businesses, and we're going to try and see if we can identify what they produce and be able to even put different types of businesses into different categories. At the end of the lesson, what we're hoping to be able to do is define what primary is, secondary and tertiary businesses are, so you should be able to tell me what they are. And also you should be able to sort out and discuss the different types of businesses and put them into those three categories for me.
Created using Powtoon.
And here are the three different types of business, and you would have seen those in the clip that I've just shown you. You have primary, secondary and tertiary. And literally these here, gentlemen, are based on what the business actually produces, in which category they lie in. So a primary business is one that retrieves or produces raw materials. So these are things that are at their absolute first state. So things like things that come out of the earth, or animals, or things like iron, coal, wood, meat. Secondary businesses are things that where the business actually takes those raw materials and transforms them into something else. So like clothing or cars or packaged foods. And tertiary businesses are ones that provide a service. So these are all types of services, like shops and cinemas and food delivery, as we discussed last lesson what a service is. I'd like you to copy these into your Hash book, please, gents, with the title of Types of Business. Gents, I'm going to give you a go now. What you're going to do is you're going to draw three columns in your Hash book. You're going to have a primary, secondary and tertiary title in each of the different columns. At the bottom of the page, you can see that there are 15 different types of businesses, and I want you to take that and to put those into each of the different columns. Pause the video now, gents, and have a go, and then I will come back and we'll discuss some of the answers. Okay, let's have a quick look. Let's start with restaurant. Now, restaurant takes raw materials and makes it into food. Not necessarily packaged food though, but they produce a service as well. Difficult one to put in. I'm going to put restaurant into secondary. I've got a bank. A bank is a service. They look after your money. Must be tertiary. Cross these out as I go along. A school. They're going to teach us. We're going to put that into tertiary. It's a service. A lawyer. They help us when things go wrong or when we need to buy a house. It's a service. A toy maker. They take things like wood and different other raw materials and make them into our toys. So I'm going to put a toy maker. A farm, where we know that they look at things off the land, whether it be vegetables, cattle, different kinds of crops. Fishing needs to go into the primary, because it's off the land. Building takes the raw materials, makes it into something else. Let's put that into secondary. Carpentry. Oh, spelled that wrong. Into secondary. Wool, obviously a primary, off the sheep. Mining. Logging. All right, we've got a mechanic. I'm going to go down. Okay, now we're left with our last two. We've got medical needs and a store. Well, a store takes our primary goods and the packaged goods and sells them to us. And then we have medical needs. So we're going to put the medical ones in here. So like doctors, nurses, paramedics. Gents, let's do our reflection now. At the end of every lesson, we're going to come back to the same question. How can businesses and organisations meet the needs of those suffering after catastrophic natural disasters? Now, we know that when natural disasters come about, we know that a lot of the primary industries will be hurt. The primary industries in particular, because there's no raw materials or the raw materials get damaged. Then what happens then is obviously buildings are destroyed, and our secondary consumers are unable to get their raw materials from the primary businesses to be able to keep their jobs afloat. And then because there are no primary, secondary businesses, those services that need those either raw goods from our primary or the different things that our secondary businesses have used are not there. So it affects all of those. So how can other businesses and organisations then obviously affect this? I want you to have a think about this, gentlemen, and maybe write down 1 or 2 notes under the title of reflection that you can bring in and discuss. Let's have a look at our lesson now. Were we able to define primary, secondary, tertiary business? Well, we know that a primary comes from raw materials from the earth. Secondary is using those raw materials to turn them into something else. And tertiary is services for consumers and businesses. Sorting and discussing different types of businesses into the 3 categories. Well, we did that in the last part where we did our 3 columns. I'm hoping that you have those in your books, that you've copied those down. And if you have got them wrong, that you have put a line through them and that you have written the correct answer under